Joining me today for over a coffee at the Office Cafe in Brussels is Maroš Šefčovič, Vice-President of the European Commission. We'll talk climate policy, Russia, and why he wants us to see Jean-Claude Juncker in the top job. So since you became European Commissioner, how more important has energy become to Europe? Would you say it's one of our more pressing issues now, since you've begun your mandate?
The most pressing issue now is to complete the energy union strategy we started with the new Commission. For me, I have to say it was at first very surprising and then very encouraging to see that we got so much support not only from the European leaders but also from the citizens for the effort for the first time really to marry the climate policy with industrial policy and to bring in much more innovation and wider aspect of energy policy like transport, agriculture and energy efficiency of the building. So I think that the approach we decided upon rightly from the start that we will proceed with the big packages, with a strong narrative, with a good story to tell actually worked. And now I see that if it comes to the energy and climate issues, we are almost done. What I'm worried a little bit is how can we deliver on our mobility packages, because we adopted them the last year, this year, and I saw that last session in Strasbourg that now the work on the mobility would be much more challenging because they couldn't agree on the negotiation position on the mobility one package, which was very important. But I think for the future of European industry, it's very important to have an yearly agreement on emission standards for cars, vans and trucks. And they've been in the mobility packages 2 and 3, so I hope we still can do it and adopt it before parliamentary election recess.
I mean, you say about climate policy being more, everyone's aware of it now, it's really in the public image. Does that make it easier when someone like President Trump comes here and says certain things about energy policy, Germany, Nord Stream 2?
Absolutely, no, because I'm telling to my global partners that what is, of course, unbelievable blessing for all of us working on these issues in Europe is the fact that we have such a strong public support for our climate policies. And also the good story to tell, because we are transforming climate policy into the industrial one. So we see that more and more business leaders is taking very responsible decision in where to invest, how to improve their production cycle. I think we have one of the most active mayors in the world, and if it comes to a number of mayors who presented the integrated plans for the sustainable development of the cities. Here again, we are the world record holder. We have more than 6,000 mayors to be so active. So for us, it makes it much easier. But I also have to say that it makes our story stronger, because I can explain to my American colleagues that the climate policy is not only about the policy, it's about, and it's not only about environmental issues.
It's not ideological anymore.
It's not ideological. It's a good business case. I mean, it has a big support from the citizens, from the mayors, and from the business leaders, including those in the United States. So I think today to deny that we have a climate change after all these hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods in Europe, it's really nonsensical, but that's a political reality, and therefore everybody expects that Europe here would really play the role of the global leader, and I think we are doing that.
So we'll see that reflected in the decarbonisation strategy for 2050 in November, December?
For sure. I mean, I think if it comes to the climate policies, we really did our homework, so I think we can come really very confident into COP24 and in all the preparatory meetings which will take place in New York, and this One Planet Summit BIS, which will be organized there as well. Because I think what we achieved in promoting renewables in Europe, that we even managed to push the ambition higher, and that in our energy mix we want to have 32% by 2030, and that we also managed to increase the ambition for energy efficiency to even higher level, to 32.5. I think it's quite significant, and if we just put the simple modeling on it, it clearly shows that we'll be able to reduce our greenhouse gas emission by more than 40%. We would still have to do the exact calculating, but I'm sure that we will be...
Our de facto trend would be, this is our business as usual now.
That's obvious, because when we've been proposing -40, So we've been still working with 27% of energy efficiency, 27% for renewables. So now, of course, it's very important. Input figures are higher. So I'm sure that the final results in the greenhouse gas emissions would be more impressive than we expected just a year ago.
I mean, you mentioned the mobility package, and I heard someone call you the batteries and space commissioner the other day. When you have someone like Elon Musk leading the world in terms of batteries, do you think, should we collaborate with this guy, or should we compete with this guy? Or should we, what is your strategy towards?
I think Elon Musk is the marketing genius, I have to say. And I think to a great extent he helps also our cause, because he brings this, I would say, topics also into the European discussions. And I think that he was quite instrumental in not only showing, how important it is to get the loads cheaper on the orbit, but also how important electromobility would be for having the cities cleaner with the less air pollution. And I think that we have to cooperate always with the best in the class. He's one of the best. But at the same time, I think that we should just learn from that experience and develop something ours, something European, and something which will go well with all that deep transformation we do in the energy sector. Because I propose this new concept of battery, so-called green battery design, which means that not only want to be responsible with the raw materials and have the battery designed in a way that they could be easily recycled and we can reuse the precious metals, but also I want that these batteries would have new super European software. What I mean by that these batteries will not be there only just to power the car, but they can earn some money to the owner, because with this new electricity market design, which we are just about to approve, I just want the owner of these cars to have the ability to sell the electricity they have in the battery.
If we turn to the East for a moment and think about, the Energy Union was meant to up European energy security, cut dependency on other countries, particularly Russia. How do you see the Nord Stream 2 debate evolving over the next 12, 18 months? How will we move past this? We have US presidents coming here and making it the first thing they talk about at NATO, and where do we go from here?
I think today nobody can tell anymore that Nord Stream 2 is just a commercial project, because I never seen a pipeline or any other energy project to be so hotly debated on the top echelons of the global politics. Let's put it in this way right now, and therefore I'm hopeful that this is properly understood, I would say, all over Europe, in all our member states, but also in Russia and in Ukraine. And then I think that if it comes to Nord Stream, what is also very important, and now I think that everybody realizes that if we are going to continue the discussion on Nord Stream, what is of paramount importance, and not only for Central Europeans, because I get a lot of questions from the prime ministers coming from Nordic countries about the European approach, about the full compliance with the EU law, about, I would say, the need of having very clear legal framework for this pipeline. And therefore I hope that we will see more traction and more movement on this gas amendment which we proposed to the Council, but also on the mandate to negotiate intergovernmental agreement between EU and Russia on this issue, where I hope we can find the solution which would be European and which would definitely not make Ukraine or Central and Eastern European countries more vulnerable.
Presumably you don't want to be remembered in 10 years as the Commission that just let Nord Stream 2 happen.
Exactly. It's, and I think it would be not a good, I would say, legacy for anyone in the Commission, because we see how all other pipelines are regulated, negotiated. Usually, they're covered by quite thick intergovernmental agreements. And I think now we see how sensitive this project has become. So we have to make sure that everything is done 100% according to the book. And I think it's in the interest of all of us.
In terms of legacy then, what will be this Commission's legacy in terms of climate policy? The Paris Agreement?
I think that what would be the legacy is that Energy Union project would be delivered to the last dot, meaning that everything what we promised will be done. it will be thick. And in this environment, as you know it very well, it was not easy work. So we would have much stronger security of supply. So I think there will be no worries if the gas supplies would be interrupted in the future, because we simply build alternatives. We have access to the global markets of LNG. We built the hardware, meaning the pipelines, interconnectors, in a way that we can now supply every country from several sources. And we have much more transparency in intergovernmental agreements, even in commercial contracts. And then in this way, we made sure that we have enough energy in Europe. Then we were making sure that this energy becomes cleaner and cleaner with all our climate legislation, like emission trading scheme, implementation of Paris Agreement, effort sharing decision, and all that proposals we had for these new emission standards in the cars. So by 2030, we will have at least 70% of our electricity low carbon. And we can use that cleaner electricity to power cleaner industry, to promote further innovation and research, and really transform the whole European economy. Because this is how I see it. I mean, that what we started to do was actually the plan how to energize and modernize Europe and its industry. And therefore I say that we moved from climate policy into the industrial one, and I think it should be really our imperative for the next decade.
So Croatia nearly became the first Central European team to win the World Cup. 2 more goals, they would have had half an hour to try and do it. You might become the first Central European citizen to become president of the European Commission. How did this decision come about?
I think, you know, we are now in the middle of a process, and I mean, my proposal was very much motivated by the fact that socialists and Democrats are traditionally very strong on the topics like equality, solidarity, human rights. But I think that now we are in such a crucial time of the European history, let's put it that way, that we really have to enlarge the debate on the topics on industrial policy, on more assertive approach to global trade from the European side. And we also need to discuss much more these very important economic themes, because they would be very decisive on the future of Europe. And of course, it has a direct implications on the jobs and growth on our continent. So I just would like to enrich the debate, to bring the topics with which I have personal experience, because I was, as you said, dealing with the batteries. I'm dealing with the transition of the coal regions, where we are doing our utmost to offer these regions and all these hardworking coal miners a new future.
It's just transition.
It's just transition exactly to the new economy. And I believe that to reach out to the voters, to the people of Europe, it's very difficult on some kind of theoretical, institutional issues. They want to see concrete projects, concrete ideas, and I think this is what we should really bring to them, because next elections would be very difficult. We'll be under a lot of pressure from Eurosceptics, from populists, who with the simple slogans will try to make, this is how we make our country strong, but they are never telling the whole truth, that you can make your country strong in one or two aspects, but overall you will open new vulnerabilities for your country, for your region. And I think that in this global competition, Europe can really sustain and survive with our traditional European way of life only if it would be strong common Europe.
I mean, the argument of a two-speed Europe, which has been thrown around over the last year, particularly in light of EU reform talk and things, do you think your position as a Slovak citizen would bring something to that debate?
I think what I can bring to the debate is the fact that I know my region very well, that we really had a common history. I was still the university student, but I was looking across the Danube to Austria through Iron Curtain. And to be quite honest, in my 20s, I didn't believe that the Iron Curtain would be ever lifted. So I have personal experience how difficult it was to go through this transition, but at the same time, how uplifting the whole exercise was, that finally we are reunified, finally, you know, our kids could study, you know, in Western European countries. All that solidarity you felt from from our Western European neighbors with the EU funds, with the restructuring, with the reforms, and that really family feelings you had when you entered for the first time, be it the Coreper or the European Council. And I think that we have to restore that feeling again, because we went through difficult financial crisis, we went through the difficult migration crisis, and I think we just need to listen to each other more and really to realize that there will be never anybody closer to us, be it east or west of Europe, than our partners in Europe, and we really need each other very much in this complex world. So I think that that would be, my approach, that Europe is quite complex. We will have the countries which would continue, of course, to build the European and Monetary Union and want to deepen it. We have different set of countries which are in Schengen. We have different set of countries which support the European prosecutors. So we have a bit of a different groups. But what is important is that feeling of embrace, of the openness. If you decide to join. And what I would say also, the sentiment of fairness, that whatever we do, it's fair for all our member states. We are ready to listen to you. We are ready to look for the solutions, because why Europe is so strong? Because we are driven by consensus. We always try to find a good solution for everyone, and that's something I think what we need really to push on and drive on even harder in the future years.
I mean, this is your second mandate as European Commissioner.
It's actually third.
Third? Oh, yes, of course.
Because I'm very proud that that for a few months I was actually the Commissioner for education, youth, culture, and sport, and I even had a couple of months of stint being Commissioner for Health. It was during this very difficult tobacco battle when the Commissioner Dalli resigned. So I really had a chance to touch, I would say, many portfolios in the
How have things changed since then? I mean, President Juncker said this was going to be a political commission. Have you seen that? I
think what I saw, and I think what was quite innovative and good, was that pressure from the top, which actually work in teams. So I have to say that when I was actually the best discussions which we had in the coalition being the discussion of the project teams. When for example, we've been preparing the Clean Energy for All package, that I invited all the relevant commissioners from my Energy Union team, and we really been sitting for a couple of hours and discussing at the beginning, what do you want to achieve in this package? How it would be, let's say, affected by the state aid, and therefore I was very happy that Margaret Vestager was there. Or how we would incorporate the environmental issues, so Carmen Uvela was there. And of course we needed money for interconnectors, interconnections, so it's very important, and Commissioner Crețu was participating. So I mean, from the early on, we've been able to kind of pinpoint what would be the most difficult political points. We provided the steer for our services, and therefore the most contentious issues been dealt with from the beginning. Therefore, let's touch the wood, as we say in my country. We had very smooth ride with all our packages, because we took care of the most sensitive and delicate issues at the beginning. And what I liked was also that very good team spirit, which we managed to create within this project team, and that was a big change, because I remember how it was in previous commissions. Very often the piece of legislation was the matter of one commissioner or one DG. Then later you had these inter-service consultations, but once it's all written, it's very difficult to change it. So very often we had then the tension at the end of the process, and not always all the pieces of legislation we've been adopting being then fully compatible.
Do you feel like commissioners have really taken ownership of the legislation that they've put forward? Does Miguel look at the climate packages and think, this is my
absolutely.
baby?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we are working very closely with Miguel, and I think he's super diligent in being in all trilogues from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 5 o'clock in the morning. I am coming in whenever necessary, because sometimes we have to talk to different political groups, and we really, I would say, work on this as a team. When it comes to transport, we do the same with Violeta Bulc, when we discuss the Connecting Europe facility or urban policy, so we do a lot together with Commissioner Crețu. So we always try to see how we can get the legislation passed through together. And when it's done, we have a drink. So, I invite all my colleagues for a drink, just really to celebrate, because it's not easy to get such a transformative pieces of legislation through the Brussels machine. But once it's done, you really should have a drink, because it's a big thing, and I really think that we are really changing Europe.
So we can expect these lessons to be learned if you take the top job next year.
Yeah, I think that for sure we should definitely continue with the coordinating role of the vice presidents, with this team spirit and team approach, with a thorough impact assessment, and with working, I would say, even closer with the European Parliament and individual MEPs, because as it looks like we might have the European Parliament which would be more fragmented. So we would need more political pro-European groups to work together, maybe 3, maybe 4. So it would require much more work in the Parliament to build the necessary majorities so we can pass the legislation through the European Parliament.
So 2.5 mandates, 3 mandates, lots of work, lots of travel. You haven't had enough of Brussels yet.
No, I mean, it's you know, when I started my career as a diplomat, and when I was for the first time as a stagiaire in 1990, actually in Prague, after the Velvet Revolution, so I found myself in the lift with that time foreign minister, Jiří Dinsbier, who was close friend of Václav Havel and one of the most famous dissident, and he was kind enough to talk to me about what do you think about the future, where we should go, because at the time we really didn't know. And he gave me his book, and it was a book which was named Dreaming About Europe. And he was the first guy who, in 1990, already felt that we should go to the European Union. That's our destination. And I have to say that that conversation and all my subsequent work then for Slovak foreign service kind of impacted all my career. So I knew that to work in Brussels, you have to learn a lot, you have to speak good English, good French. I did my PhD in European law because the system here is not easy. So I think that all my CV somehow affected in a positive sense by EU's agenda. I never regretted it, because I saw how we've been transforming my country, not only to join the EU, but Schengen, Eurozone. It really transformed my country completely. But also now I had the opportunity to see how we can transform Europe, and through Europe, what kind of positive influence we have on the world. And I think it's very few posts or very few places where you can do this. So I'm very much thrilled about being here, doing my job, and if I had a chance, I'd like to continue.
Well, Commissioner, thank you for sharing a coffee with me. Thank you for sharing a chat with me.
It was excellent chat as well. Thank you. Thank you.